Storytelling is an art form that has been around since the dawn of man. These days, it seems like we get most of our stories from books, TV, movies, or true crime podcasts, but we seldom get to hear stories from the people who actually live them. I believe that everyone has at least one great story that only they can tell. Maybe it's a story you've never told before because of its legal implications. Maybe it's a story of star-crossed lovers, or maybe it's the story of your best day at camp. My best story is dedicated to discovering these stories and releasing them into the wild, one guest at a time. I'm Travis Tidmore. Join me as I discover Hal Lublin's best story. Hal, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being on.
Thank you for having me. It's nice to be here.
No problem. Well, Hal, what is your backstory?
Oh my goodness. Well, I was born and raised. I come from a humble beginning in Philadelphia. I was born and raised in Philly. I went to school at Syracuse, then came back to Philly for a year and really wasn't sure. I knew what I wanted to do. I always wanted to be a performer. It went from being like a stand-up comedian to falling in love with improvising to maybe I'll be a movie star to doing theater. So I was going to go to Chicago and study at Second City. I was going to go to Washington, D.C. and be in the theater scene. And then I talked to one of my best friends who I grew up with, who was out here in LA. And he said, come to LA and we'll be movie stars. And I said, okay. And then at the end of the summer, I drove out. And for the last almost 20 years, I've slowly built a career. And it feels like all the good stuff has happened almost by accident, but it's all kind of built on itself. So going to Second City, I met my wife. I also got involved in Thrilling Adventure Hour, and then Thrilling Adventure Hour got me into Welcome to Night Vale. Thrilling Adventure Hour got me into Venture Brothers and got me into Mighty Magisword. So it really, like, everything good has come out of that, which has also come out of just taking classes and being part of different communities and being with good creative people who are nice and were gracious enough to include me along the way.
That's awesome. Well, what is your best story?
Oh my goodness. You mentioned this. You're like, come on the podcast. And I said, sure, I would love to do it. I'm it's just me and all these boxes of Fruity Pebbles over my shoulder. What am I going to do? And my wife, who's in the other room. I don't want to discount her. I'm not putting her below the Fruity Pebbles. I just want to be clear. She's not going to appear in this video. But she is real and not a sweater I throw over chairs at public events and say she's in the bathroom. But you were like, it's just telling, like, everybody's got a great story. And I was like, I don't know what my great story is. And I've been thinking about it, and I can't figure out what, like, I don't know what do you consider a great story? That's what I'm curious about. So because I want to deliver the goods.
Honestly, it can be anything. The past episodes we've had stories from camp, people meeting their idols. One was a tastefully told masturbation story. We've had a little bit of everything. It's run the gamut. And so it's really just each person lives their life and has a story, at least one fun or exciting or thrilling or haunting story that only they can tell because only they live those moments. So whether that's the night you spent in a haunted house or the adventure you went on with a bunch of friends to score Creed tickets and then ended up just calling Ticketmaster because no one buys tickets in line anymore. That's not a true story, obviously. I just made it up.
No, that never happened to anybody. But nobody ever. Creed? What is that even?
No one ever would do that. So
I think I have one for you.
All right.
I think I have one. So one of the great things about doing Thrilling Adventure Hour for 15 years now is getting to work with a ton of really well-known famous people and getting to meet them. You know, you can meet them in a lot of different ways. You can meet them at a con like your con, which is a really great experience to have. I think it's different when you come in as a collaborator. So you're automatically a peer. And that's like an interesting dynamic to be thrust into. So I remember years ago, we were doing Beyond Belief at the Egyptian Theater. And we had Tim Amundsen and Richard Speight, who were both from Supernatural, among many other things, and who were college roommates. So I was hanging out with them afterwards. We were just chatting, and Ted Raimi was there. So
That's crazy.
Got to chat with him as well. Really nice guy, and we spoke, and that was great. So it's sort of interesting to like, oh, I know all of these people, and now I'm sort of talking with them. Just a really nice hang. So a few years later, we were going to San Diego Comic-Con every summer. And part of that experience was the really great PR people we were working with got us into the EW suite. They take over the Hard Rock Hotel downtown, and you go up to basically the penthouse floor, and they've taken over entire floors. And this suite is where they do video interviews, and this suite is for EW radio. And you're waiting in this really nice area with a ton of food in the meantime. So I'm sitting there, and Ted Raimi's there. So I go and sit next to him, and I just say, "Hey, how you doing? It's Hal from the Thrilling Adventure Hour." He's like, "Oh, hey, how's it going?" We just have a really nice small talk of what are you doing? What are you working on? And he was like, "Oh, I'm here for the Evil Dead series because we're shooting it right now in, I guess, New Zealand or Australia where it was filming. So we're here sort of promoting that." I'm like, "Oh, how's that been? How's it going?" And we finish. I go and do my thing, and then I come back, and he has to go do his thing. And before he's leaving, there's people. He's like, "Hey, it was really nice to get to talk to you again." And I was like, "Same, absolute same." And I realized after he left, I was like, "Oh, that was really like I had a good, non-awkward." Because I have a tendency, like I'm not an awkward person, but it can be tough in those situations when you're a fan of someone's to have a normal conversation. You do your best, but sometimes you come on the other side of it where you're really not saying as much. And I was like, "Oh, that was a good conversation. Good job, Hal. You did well." And it started to dawn on me that that was somebody who I'd never met before. I'd never met them. They had not done Thrilling Adventure Hour. I doubt they'd even ever seen it or knew what it was, because it wasn't Ted Raimi. It was Sam Raimi. And I just saw him, and I was like, "You have a similar face." Like, they look alike a little bit. Ted is the younger brother, and that's pretty clear. But I sat down, and because I knew him, I knew his face from things I had seen, somehow conflated the two and had a full conversation with him, not realizing at all at any point. And I still to this day, I wonder if I encountered him again, if he would behave like, "Oh yeah, it's my friend from Comic-Con," or if it would just start over again and he would have no idea who I was. Like, I feel like I got away with one. Like, it was a heist almost. Because he genuinely doesn't know that we haven't met before, or he's so nice that he refuses to make it awkward for either of us. But he continued to talk to me when it was clear, like the way I identified myself, because I'm very like good at that. I'm terrible with names myself, so I always go like, "Hey, how's it going? It's Hal. I did Thrilling Adventure Hour." And I just want to create context to make it easier. And I guess he took that as, "Hello, stranger. Okay, that's something you've worked on. How have you been?" And the more like I was replaying it in that moment every second of me introducing myself and him going, "Yeah, how are you?" Just bizarre. Just the bizarre. That was one of the more bizarre. I can't think of a more bizarre encounter I've had. That makes them look very good because they were very kind to me, and at the same time makes me feel super dumb because I didn't even realize, like, they're so famous and they're brothers. I was close.
At least you had a little context for it. It wasn't just random.
I did. They were both involved in a lot of movies together. It's your fault for putting your brother in all those movies. Now I'm gonna mix you up forever.
That's fantastic. Very nice. Well, I hope you run into him again so we can get you back here and get that story next time.
I do too. Yeah, the next where he's like, he just pulls me, "Hey, can I talk to you for a second? What you did in San Diego is not cool. I know that I didn't know you before then. What is it? What do you want? My credit card? You want my cell phone? Trying to steal are you gonna parasite me? Is that what you're gonna do? You're gonna try to get me to hire you in my home?" And then I won't give away the twist. Maybe you haven't seen it. And the answer is yes, I will do that. I will parasite for you, Sam Raimi, if you want me to. But I'm letting you know I'm doing it.
Yeah,
only if you're cool with it. Can I parasite you, Sam Raimi? Is that all right if I do that?
I'm sure his house is big enough he'd never even notice.
That's right. It's just a big. It's just all the sets from Spider-Man.
That's his home.
Yeah, I did. One of my first extra work jobs was on Spider-Man when it was filming. I was an extra in the wrestling scenes.
Then you really should have known.
I know. Yeah, and at one point I got close to like the little video village, which is off to the side. And Randy Savage, I'm a lifelong wrestling fan, and Randy Savage plays Bonesaw McGraw in that movie. And they're all talking and like laughing, and I was just standing close enough, and I tried to sort of get in on it, but I also tried to like show that I was a wrestling fan. Randy Savage turned and looked at me like this, like, and then just moved on with his life. Then his life continued from there without me. That's a me story, not a him story. I'm sure he's not, rest his soul. I'm sure he wasn't telling that story for the rest of his life the way I will.
I bet he was. He probably was.
He probably was. Hey, you know who I met? I'm standing in a video village and this guy's over my shoulder. Lo and behold, I hear his voice. Oh, yeah.
That is spot on.
Thank
Amazing.
You. Thank you.
Well, how can people find you these days? What are you up to?
Jeez, I'm podcasting like a maniac here. I'm doing We Got This with Mark and Hal. That is my offshoot podcast from the Thrilling Adventure Hour. It is a nonfiction. The Thrilling Adventure Hour has been doing live shows to benefit food banks in different cities, and the ones that we've done already are available for streaming. You can pay a few bucks, and you get access to it. And by doing that, you're benefiting food banks in LA, New York, Chicago, Detroit, Seattle, New Orleans, I think is one as well. They're adding more. We will have done one. While we're recording this, there is one in 3 days. But that they should all be available. And you can follow me at Hal Lublin and go to hallublin.com. And you can find everything you need there. Everything in the world is at hallublin.com.
Well, I hope you guys get to keep doing the Thrilling Adventure Hour. It's been a lot of fun to watch those, and definitely something we need in these times. Some comedy and some good storytelling.
Absolutely, yeah. I almost thought I should tell my shower pie story, and then I realized that I've told it so much. There's a chance people who are listening. Do you want to hear that story? You know that story, don't you? Do you know this story?
Off the top of my head, no.
All right,
this
story. This is probably a better story than the Sam Raimi one. That one's just a weird. Well, this one also. So in 2015, we ended the Thrilling Adventure Hour after 10 years or 5 years of doing the show. No, it was 10 years. We decided the monthly shows were going to stop. But before that, we had booked a tour of Australia and New Zealand, which was really cool. We all got to travel together, and we all love one another and still stay in close contact. So it made it so easy to do these new shows. At the end of the trip, we were in Wellington, New Zealand, and the first night we were there, you go to Cuba Street. Cuba Street is a night market, and it's all sorts of cool stuff. All the shops are open. If you live in a city that is a First Friday, it's very similar to that. And one of the areas was like a little, like all the food tents were set up. And I love pie. I love apple pie, which is, the catchphrase of one of my Thrilling Adventure Hour characters, but also is legitimately one of my favorite treats. And they had these pies that were like this big, like personal sized pies. There you go. Okay. So I had one, and then I got one. I was like, I'm going to have another one later because this is a stand. It's not going to be here the next day. And I put it in the fridge and sort of forgot about it. And I have a tendency to wake up too early. And my wife will sleep in on vacation. She's blessed with the ability to sleep in. So I woke up in the morning, and she was still sleeping, and I didn't want to wake her up, but I was so hungry. And so I was thinking, like, well, I'm not going to go get breakfast without her. I'm going to wait, and we'll get food together. And then it dawned on me that I had a pie in the refrigerator. Now, my wife is a very light sleeper, and I did not want to wake her up. So the only place I could go to mask the noise of me eating was the bathroom. So I go in the bathroom, I open the little pie box, I get the pie out. I'm like, all right, I'm going to eat this pie. And it occurs to me that the crumbs are going to get everywhere. And I don't want to be, I'm not a messy person. I don't want crumbs all over the place. See how well organized those cereal boxes are? That is a man who is very fastidious at how he organizes his foods. So it occurs to me, I have like the best idea ever. What I'm going to do is I have to shower anyway. I'm going to take the pie with me in the shower. I get a nice warm water going. It'll be on my back. And I'll eat the pie. And if any crumbs drop, they go right down the drain. So I get in, get naked in the shower, eating a pie. I don't even have a fork. I'm just like eating it.
Yeah.
And it occurs like, yeah, like you do. Like I was so blinded by the fact that I thought this was the greatest idea ever, that I'd like solve the idea of messy eating forever, that it took a second for shame to creep in. But when it did, it hit like a freight train. And I was like, what have I done? I'm sitting here. I'm an adult male, naked in the shower in New Zealand, eating a cold apple pie because I don't want to wake up my wife, but I'm hungry. How did it get to this? Like, you go through the whole range of what I have to relive all of my life choices and figure out where did I cross the connection that got me here where I am right now? And I thought, well, this is really the perfect crime, because the trash is going in the can. Jennifer's not going to go sifting through the trash in the morning.
Yeah.
And all the other evidence is down the drain.
Yeah.
I don't ever have to tell anybody about this ever. I'm never going to say it. No one ever has to know. As shameful as this is, I don't ever have to tell anybody about it. Jennifer wakes up, and the first thing I say is, sweetheart, I got to tell you what I did this morning while you were asleep. I couldn't hold it in. And even then I was like, I'm only going to tell her. No one else will ever know. I think every podcast that I host, I've told this story over and over and over again, because it occurs to me that the value of how funny a story it is outweighs any shame that I have. And I don't know any, like, it has become, for listeners of my podcast that know the story, that's become like a signature thing about me, is that I ate pie in the shower. And you know what? I would do it again. I would gladly eat shower pie again. It was so good and so clean. I was fortunate recently. I dunked on Little Debbie snack cakes, and in doing so, was elevating my hometown snack cakes, which are tasty cakes. And they took notice on Twitter, and they're sending me a care package. And now I'm thinking I should take one of those fruit pies and eat it in the shower like a king.
Good.
Like a king. So that is probably a signature story of mine, if it's not my greatest story.
That's fantastic. Well, we got a bonus story out of you today.
There you go. 2 for 1.
First twofer. Excellent. Well, Hal, thank you so much for being on the show. We would love to have you back at some point in time, and we look forward to more Thrilling Adventure Hour, and hope to see or hear you on more TV shows in the future.
It is absolutely my pleasure to be here. And I pledge that I will have more stuff happen to me, so that the next time we sit down to talk, I'll have another story.
Perfect. That's all I can ask.
It won't just be more shower eating, I promise.
Although if there is a shower sequel, we need to have that one too.
That's true. I'm just going to set up a buffet in there. That'll be it. You'll know when the patent hits.
Okay.
What I've done.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks to Hal for telling us not one, but 2 great stories today. As always, new episodes drop right here every Tuesday and Thursday. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Our title music is Red, White, Black, and Blue by Peg and the Rejected. If you have a story you'd like to tell on the show, hit us up on our Facebook page, over on Twitter at MyBestStoryShow, or via email at mybeststorypodcast@gmail.com. Until next time, go live your best story.